Yeah.
Claire is with me, having a conversation this morning, and we're going to hear from Claire how she came to meet Jesus, the difference that Jesus made in her life. But what I'm going to ask you to start, Claire, is just introduce yourself. Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was born in Penrhys, which most people know is a coastal estate. I come from a mining family. My dad and my eldest brother. My eldest brother was the last in the line to go down the pits. So I'm a Valleys girl all through and through, and I'm very proud of that.
Lovely, lovely. Now, for those, I know that the Rhondda is the center of the world, okay? But I'm just explaining to people who are not familiar with where Penrhys is. Penrhys is in the Rhondda Valley.
Yeah.
But in fairness, they probably would have picked that up from your accent anyway, Claire, which is a lovely
Yeah.
accent. Okay, so we're
Oh,
talking,
thank you.
yeah. Listen, tell us a little bit about your childhood, your growing up days. Can you do that? What was
Yeah,
it like?
absolutely. Yes, so I've got three brothers. Obviously my mum and dad then. We lived in a little terraced house, shared bedrooms. We didn't have a lot, but my dad always worked. He was a hard worker, always provided. We came from a strict background. But it was a good family, and so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my brothers, and to be a part of that family, really.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's a big thing to say, that you're proud to be part of that family. Really, that's lovely. Then your life went a little bit off the rails, didn't it? Sort of what age would you say that things started to go a bit pear-shaped for you?
Yeah, so I would say from the age of 11, but before that, where I was from in Cumberland Death, we bothered in gangs, in groups, and our gang, unfortunately, had older people in there as well.
Okay.
And from the age of 12, I started to smoke cannabis, and I started to take amphetamines, which is known as speed. Heroin really hadn't come into the valleys at that age, and I would say that's only the only drug that I'd never taken, because it hadn't come until I was much older. But by the time I was 15, I was already addicted to amphetamines. I was smoking cannabis, yes, on a daily basis. But one of my biggest addictions was prescription drugs, and which were they called then, back then they were called DGs, they were called but they were called Codemol, which was codeine, as you know. And codeine really took a big grip of my life. I used to suffer with a condition which was in a lot of pain, and in those days you didn't recognize it. My mother was on these prescription tablets, and I would actually pinch these tablets from her. And I would eventually threaten her, to give them to me, and eventually the doctors then prescribed those tablets to me, and codeine took a hold of my life from as young as that. That wouldn't even happen today. Well, I hope it wouldn't happen today. So, and then by the time I was 15, they wanted to put me on antidepressants. They thought that would help. It didn't. I was a very wayward child. I was a runaway child, often run away, where police would be out looking for me. Family, as you can imagine, the community would be out looking for me. And I would just run away.
And this is at the age of 15?
Before then, yeah, from about 13. Yeah, in school they would put me on what they would call a report book, where I was had to have it signed by everybody, every class I would go in, just to make sure that I was there, and I hadn't done a runner. So
do you know when when we hear these sort of stories, okay, these testimonies, there's often a part where people go, or kids go from bad to worse, that things actually they're bad enough as they are, okay, but they actually get worse. Do you remember a point in your life where actually things got worse and got more desperate? And is there
Yes, definitely. I would say I remember doing actually the Ouija board when I was in the junior school.
Right.
We started
Junior
to delve.
school. So under 11?
Yeah, under 11, it
Gosh.
was it was just a normal thing that we would do. We would make up letters as they would do then.
Yeah.
And we started to involve that, and then it went on further. And one of my friends' houses, the parents, they were drug dealers that we would hang about in, which I didn't know at that age.
Yeah.
And we got into a lot of things of the occult,
Okay.
where we handed our lives over to the devil
Okay.
and asked him that he would become Lord of our lives.
Gosh.
Where we would do seances and everything. And I can really say from that point, my life really took a bad turn. But if I could just go back, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, yeah.
From
What age?
about,
What age? Just give us an age there.
if I go from, say, about 8 years old, we used to go
Okay.
to a church in Binkerville called Bethany. And it was a time of, Easter time and Christmas time where they would give
Yeah.
out sweets and chocolates. So as a group, we would know, if we go at these times, we would get these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
And I remember this group of women, and they said, we want to make you Christian. So we want you to come out the back of the church with us today, and you're going to kneel down and you're going to say this prayer. Now, I didn't know what this prayer was, but
Yeah.
I said to them, will I have my sweets after the prayer? And I was 10, and I'll never forget it. And I'll tell you why I won't forget it. I was 10 at the time. And they said, yeah, you will definitely get your sweets, but say this prayer first. And now, as I know, what we call the sinner's prayer, the salvation prayer, asking Jesus to become Lord of your life. And it was then, and I remember doing it. And afterwards, they got up and they said, go and tell somebody that you're a Christian. I thought, oh, yeah, okay, no problem with that. Did that. But I remember going to school the next day, and it's always stayed with me. And I remember one of the girls, they swore. And I could remember this, something inside me just go, oh, what was that? It didn't feel right anymore. But so you see, sort of from 10, and all of a sudden from 11 then into 12, I'm now starting to go into drugs and starting into addiction.
Gosh.
And yeah. I mean, we would go into stuff with voodoo dolls. We would do absolutely everything. But I've got friends that I've lost through suicide. You see friends that have still got depression. And I know that a lot of that is because of that. But
Gosh.
praise God, I have been delivered of all of that. It's only through the name of Jesus that set me through, free from that. But I would go home, and the Ouija board would be quite a normal thing to do. So, I was delving into things that I wasn't quite sure of, but I knew that there was gateways that was opening up.
Yeah.
And shouldn't been. And it was quite the norm in the area that I came from.
Gosh. Okay. So tell us about how your journey to Jesus. You've shared about in the church. You went on your knees, sinner's prayer. Then all this happened. How was your journey back to Jesus, sort of, to be delivered from this stuff? How did that start?
What happened was I tried to kill myself.
Give us an age again. What age are we talking about here?
What are we talking about? I would say about 20. Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't a child. Yeah, you weren't a child anymore.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I was about 18, they wanted to put me in a psychiatric ward.
Okay.
They didn't know what to do with me. I would sit in a chair. I would rock back and forth. I was in an abusive relationship of 10 years, which I won't go into because, that's the past. And my mother would come to the front door, and she would shout through my letterbox to see if I was alive in the morning.
Gosh.
And, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do as a family, But how I came to know Christ was through a couple called Susan and David Jones. And Susan Jones is my cousin, because my father's side of the family got a very pastoral line, a Christian side. So I know those generations have been praying for people like me, for the next generations. And they give out what they call Jesus videos, the cassettes. Not many people know, but our age will know. We'll know them, the cassettes. And they were handing out. And my mother said to me this one day, she said, I want you to watch this video. And I went, oh, and I'm just acting as I was then. I go, oh, I'll watch it. Go on then. I can remember putting it on. I don't remember a lot about the video, but I just remember that Susan and David came back round the doors, and I answered the front door, and I wasn't quite with it. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing my cousin and her husband, who's the pastor of Bush Chapel in Clydach. And they said, would you like to come to church on Sunday? And I thought, and I said, yeah, go on then. But I thought to go to church, you had to be a good person.
Yeah.
I didn't think that somebody like myself, who was often called scum, the worst of the worst. People didn't want to look at me, didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to bother with me. And I thought, how do they want me to go into this building?
Lovely.
But I thought you had to dress nice. I thought you had to put on nice trousers or skirts. And I remember finding these pair of trousers, I'll never forget it, and a top. And I thought I looked okay, but I didn't. But I went, and I remember them singing this song. And I walked into this church, and Susan said, I'll pick you up 5:45. And now I know if a Christian says something to you, and this is very important, I hope people listen to this. As Christians, when we say something to somebody, please stick to it, unless you absolutely can't, because that really was significant to me, because, she stuck to that word and was outside my door at 5:45 in the car. And the guy who was with my abusive partner at the time said, you won't go. And, now I know it was the Holy Spirit inside me was now giving me the strength to do it. And I remember walking in, and they started singing this song, and it was going, King of Kings, Majesty. And all of a sudden, I just started to break down. I just started to cry.
Beautiful.
And I looked around. It makes me emotional now. And I just thought, oh my goodness, nobody's judging me. Nobody's, because I must have absolutely stunk of weed. I must have, but instead people would stand beside of me and just smile. And I just looked at them, and I thought, what? I want what they got. I want that love. I don't know what they've got, but I want it, But it was very hard for me as well to stay in a church. And I remember what they used to call was the altar call.
Yes.
And I remember Pastor David doing that. And I just thought, I can't go down that front. I was just absolutely a mess. I was just crying. This song had just touched me as this King of Kings, Majesty. Do you know what I mean? Would love somebody like me. And, oh gosh, it scares me. And I just thought, do you know what? I want it. I want it. I want what these people got, but they were real. They weren't false. They were real, and I knew they were real, because when you're an addict, or when you come from the background that I come from, that I had to be tough, had to be streetwise, you're not stupid. You know if someone is real and if somebody is not.
Yeah.
And that's important as well, is to be real with a person. And I just thought, no, I want what they want. And I remember running down the aisle afterwards and just saying, I want what you got. And I remember Pastor David then leading me to the Lord that night, even though I'd done it all those years ago and that seed had been planted. Yeah. Absolutely believe that God had entered my life then. because if I go through some of the stories, which is a lot and a vast, and I know we've got to fit it all in a short time. If I go into some of the stories, and you won't believe what I've actually survived. And I know that it's only through God that I've survived what I've been through. But I just remember, and they give me this Bible, and I didn't really have a clue about this Bible. But I just remember my partner ripping this Bible up because he was just furious, absolutely furious. But what they do, Susan used to open the church at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it was about 6. Bear with me with the times and things.
Yeah.
In the morning. And I just felt this urgency to go to this chapel where you could just go and sit.
This was the next day, or?
Oh, I would say within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Of starting to go to church, yeah. And I remember going, and they would put a mattress on the front of the church, and they would just let me lay on this mattress and just sleep. Gosh. And I would feel the peace of God over my life, and I would sleep.
Wow.
And the effects of the drugs would not even touch me. I would literally just sit, and I kept going. But he started to threaten me that he would kill me if I carried on going to the church. But I knew I had to have more. I had to have more. And I told my parents, and to be honest, I think they thought, oh my goodness, what cult have she joined, you know? But they knew David, so they knew I was safe. And it went on from there. But then I started tuning up at prayer meetings, because they'd have a Bible study and a prayer meeting, and then it'd be other things. But I just could not break the cycle of my addiction. And they introduced me to Teen Challenge.
Okay.
And
how did that connection come about?
They actually, the church then, Bush Free Mission Church in Clydach, they actually used to work alongside with Teen Challenge. They used to run a bus. So they knew all about it. And they told me, look, there's this place called Teen Challenge. I would really think that it'll be beneficial for you to go.
Yeah.
And my parents couldn't believe it. I actually left this guy that I was with for over 10 years. I actually had to have a ladder up to a window to climb out of the window to escape.
Gosh. And look at you now. You're a pastor's wife.
Who would have ever thought that?
In a church. Well, yeah, I'm deliberately sort of bringing this up. You're a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
You lead worship in church?
Yes, with not just me. I'm part of a team. I'm with Regina and Rachel in a team. So we do worship.
Yeah.
I'm Sunday school teacher.
Listen, Claire, listen.
Yeah.
If you go back now 25 years, who in their honor would have trusted you with their kids?
Oh my gosh, no one. One of my brothers wouldn't let me in their house, let alone anything else.
So the point I'm trying to make is where you were then and where you are now, because of Jesus, right? Cleaned you up, that you're being trusted with kids to look after them, to teach them about Jesus. Isn't that wonderful? That contrast between nobody would have let their kids go anywhere near you 25 years ago. But because of Jesus and what he's done, and this journey that you've been on, where he's cleaned you up and delivered you from stuff, and to this place where you're a pastor's wife, part of the leadership in the church, where, absolutely amazing what Jesus can do, isn't it? Really?
Oh, absolutely. We're part of Bethany Baptist Ynyshir Church.
Yeah.
And they're such an amazing people. I know a lot of people say that about their own churches. But, they're so willing and so loving and caring, and especially, with the younger generations. And I mean, we've got people with all sorts of problems coming in now. God is really doing a move, and we can feel that we're on that edge with him, you know, and he's going forward, and we're excited, you know. And Jesus, what he's done in me and delivered me from, no doctor can explain that. I mean, I can't even make the face that I had back then, because it was that bad, you know. And what I mean by that, I was so depressed. And now, you know, it doesn't mean that I have great days. Does anybody have great days 24/7? No, I don't think at all. But I've got a joy now that only Jesus can give you.
Yeah.
I can't get that from the world. I can't get that from anything. Anything in the world is only temporary. But joy is only from the Lord. And our prayer is, Lord, you know, give us the people that no one wants. You know,
Wow.
Give us the people that no one wants to deal with. Bring them in.
Wow.
Because my heart is for street kids.
Share a bit about that. Open up a little bit about that, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could go on and on, but please stop me.
No.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I prayed with, you know, David Wilkerson, obviously with Teen Challenge. I said, Lord, I want a heart after David Wilkerson, who wasn't afraid to go and approach the ones that nobody wants to approach. And, you know, we've only been like in Bethany now, you know, for the past, say, about 2 years. But actually, Rob stepped into his pastor side of things this year. And I said, Lord, give me those kids. Give me those ones that no one wants to deal with, who are the hardest the hard. Because I know that you, and I don't just mean that, there's churches in the Rhondda and they're doing amazing works, and they really are. And we all pray for each other because we want to belong together. But I said, Lord, I want to reach those when they're young enough, so I can say to them, do you know what? Don't take that path that I took. Don't go through what I went through. There is a different way. And Jesus is exciting. And Jesus is the way. And Jesus is, because no, I was somebody who never felt like they fitted in properly, if that makes sense. But with Jesus, you don't need to fit in, because you're part of a family anyway. But our aim is now, going forward as a vision, is evangelism, because we want to see people led to the Lord. We want to see people led to heaven. We don't want to see them go to hell. Our heart is for the lost. So we are praying, Lord, give us those that no one wants. And you know, and that's our heart as a church and as a people. And they just love them as they come in through the doors.
I tell you, we could carry on this conversation for another hour, okay? Between us, because all I'm doing is feeding you questions, and you're just, you know, which is great. That's the idea of it.
Yeah.
But we can't, Claire. But I do have one more question. Okay.
Yeah.
I have this is not the question. I have a sense we're going to hear more from you and Rob again, you know, maybe along the line as things progress for you. Because if you've prayed that prayer, send us the people that, you know, no one else wants. If you've prayed that prayer, wow.
Oh,
you know,
it's happening. It's happening.
It's just, you know, fasten your seatbelts thing. But this is the question that I have for you now. What would you say now? There's somebody watching this now, okay, who are trapped, and in that pit, and they don't know how to get out. The trap of drugs, the trap of maybe alcohol, but in particular, you know, occult, and you know, their life is just coming to pieces as yours was rather. What would you say to that person now? You know, they're watching this and they're in that place of being trapped, particularly in the occult. What would you say?
I know the only answer is Jesus. You have to submit your life to Jesus. get to a church or a Christian, like my husband, as you know, there was a woman. Let them speak the truth of Jesus over your life. Let them deliver you out of the darkness, because I know that it can be done. Because if you would ask my mother, she would say, my daughter should be 6 foot under. You know, she's not here now, but that's what she used to say to people. It's only Jesus who is going to set you free. It's only Jesus who is going to give you life. He's going to give you hope. And he is going to give you a future. Because he wants you, he loves you, and he has chosen you by name. So
Claire,
please just get to a church anywhere, a church, and just ask those questions. Do not be ashamed. Do not worry about what clothes you got on, what you smell like, what you look like. Please, just go. Jesus is the answer to it all.
lovely. Yeah.
I give him all the glory with all my heart.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, Jesus doesn't care what clothes you're wearing.
Absolutely not.
How much you stink, if you do stink.
No.
Doesn't care. And he's the one that is drawing you. So
Yeah,
that's a brilliant place to bring this to a close, Claire, because I don't think, nothing needs to be added to that. Okay. So listen, thank you. Right.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad to meet you.
Yeah. And there's a conversation to be had further down the road, because I want to hear how you guys are doing, and we'll hear some more stories of what God is doing in
we're excited. Yeah.
Bethany Baptist Church Ynyshir. And I'll put some details on as well, so that people, if people want to contact you to hear more, then they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, and to speak to Challenge Valley's absolute amazing outreach. For addictions.
But they can come to you. They can come to you in order to make that connection, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.